Hey, welcome back to MGM. I'm Jimmy, and this week I had planned to do a painting video on my Ironhead Prospectors, and I ended up failing pretty miserably as it was the first miniature that I decided to paint out of this box. And I wanted to make this video as this is something that every miniature painter or hobbyist faces. When they don't get something up to standard, I want to tell you why it's okay to fail. I'm going to still show you that video and what I did about it. Okay, so we all want to paint like the pros and everything else. I am simply not that. I don't have the time. This video started out as a simple slapchop zenithal type of job where I wanted to get these miniatures painted up quickly and on the tabletop. As always, I start out with a black prime, and as we go through this, I'm going to tell you the story of, why I got to the point where I was ready to put this guy in simple green and start over. And then I figured, you know what, maybe this video is worth making, as too often us miniature painters, we get frustrated or our miniatures don't come out the way that we originally see them, and we think about starting over, or just we get down on ourselves. You don't have to do that. I'm going to show you how I just kind of stuck with this miniature and eventually got to something that I was happy with. So like any slapchop grisaille zenithal highlight, I start off with an off-white type of primer. For this I use the Army Painter Corpse Pale, and I go around with my dry brush, just very quickly giving this an initial highlight. In the next step I use a pure white, and I go through just trying to get the edges of the miniature more at a 45-degree angle coming down from the top. And the entire point of doing this is to get some kind of gradient on the miniature, so when you use contrast or speed paints, they really have a lot of depth to them. Now, I've done this process several times, and with most of the miniatures that I've painted this way, I have really enjoyed the final product and the speed and efficiency that I got out of it. In this particular job, I did use some new speed paints, and it really did kind of flip everything on its lid. The first speed paint that I'm going to go in and use is going to be the Army Painter's Camo Cloak, and this is the original 1.0 formula. I absolutely love the way that this paint goes over the layers that I've made here. I've used this paint several times, I'm very comfortable with it, and you'll be able to see a lot of depth in just one coat. I work my way around all of the fabric areas on this model, and when it's over, as always with this color, I'm really pleased with the result. Now enters the first problem, and I go with Army Painter's Maize Yellow, and this is one of the brand new 2.0 speed paints. And I start to go over the helmet here that I want to be yellow. This is a very vibrant yellow. I'm very comfortable with using the Zealot Yellow, which is one of the original speed paints. But in using this Maize Yellow, I can tell immediately on the front that it is not doing very well with some of the darker areas on the helmet from those initial dry brushes. The darker layers really show through despite my best efforts to try to get some kind of layer or some kind of pigment over the top of them. I didn't want to fiddle with it too much, as you don't want to brush this stuff in too hard, so I figured I would just let it dry and maybe I would go back and try putting another coat on top. For the next piece, I go in with Army Painter's Grim Black. This is a 1.0 speed paint that I've used several times. Again, very comfortable with it as well. I'm going to get the boots as well as the gloves. For the armor, I wanted it to be this lighter bone type of color, so I went in with one of the new Army Painter speed paints. This is Howling Sand. I believe this is after Dana Howell. And I go in and just try to give this a good once-over on the armor. I could tell that the paint just simply wasn't taking too well to the undercoats that I had put on. It just simply wasn't feeling like the normal contrast paints that I typically work with, like a Pallid Bone or something from that 1.0 range. I continued on with it, however, and looking at the helmet as it dried, along with this color as well, I could really tell that this probably wasn't going to be a very good video, and I should probably think about starting over. In doing so, I thought about how everybody's been in this position before, where we've painted on a few coats, and it's not something that we particularly think is pleasing to the eye. And we think about starting over, but then again, we could continue to work with what we have and try to get a finished result that we are comfortable with. So this video isn't so much about painting the Ironhead Prospector, it's more about not being happy with your paint job, but staying the course until you find you get something that you are happy with. When looking at the model, I'm not pleased with the armor, I'm not pleased with the yellow on the helmet. These are both Army Painter 2.0 speed paints, so it's my first time using them, and I started to question, maybe it's the speed paints, I don't know. The camo cloak went on very well. The Zealot yellow, which is out of the 1.0 range, seems to go over very well. I figured this yellow would do good as well, and I'm just not happy with it. I continue on with some new paints, and this time I'm using the Army Painter Broadsword Silver. This is one of their metallics that they released in the 2.0 range. I wanted to give these a try, and again, in putting it on, it doesn't pop to me. It just doesn't give me the kind of metal feel that I'm looking for. Now, I understand in using these speed paints, you're supposed to put it over a pure white, but in a lot of places that is what I am painting over, and I am really just not happy with the result that this has given me. As you can see, it goes on and it looks like a very light gray. I continue moving forward with this project, and the next paint that I use is the Army Painter's Talos Bronze. This is another metallic from the 2.0 speed paint launch, and this time I liked this color, but you'll be able to see here I'm not seeing a lot of depth with it. I'm not seeing the raised areas really pop, and I'm not seeing the shadows really darken with this color. Now, I will say that I am a fan of the Army Painter, and I probably went to my local hobby store 4 or 5 times waiting for them to release the singles, because I was a big fan of the Army Painter, the Speed Paint 1.0 range. I've had a tremendous amount of success with those paints. It's really just helped me be more efficient and has made my miniatures look really good, despite a lot of the negative aspects that people in the community have called out with reactivation and things like that. I've found a good way to work around that, and I found something that works really well for me. Now, with the release of the Army Painter 2.0 speed paints, they were supposed to dry quickly and allow you to go back over those with acrylic paints or a wash without the reactivation properties happening. So I wanted to take a quick minute to try going back over the armor and go back over the helmet to see if I could try to just give that a better look to it. Unfortunately, the result was similar to the last time, and I ended up just looking at this model thinking, hey look, I kind of just want to put it in some simple green and we'll start this tutorial over. Now, I got the inspiration for this paint job from the Harry Stick 2 on Instagram, who had tagged me in one of his prospectors. I was trying to replicate that a bit, and I asked him what paints that he used, and I found out for the majority he was using some contrast paints. I decided to trudge on at this point, using the Army Painter Hardened Leather, once again a 1.0 speed paint, just to get the leather areas. And at this time I'd kind of decided, hey look, I'm going to go through with some acrylic paints, see how the 2.0 speed paint holds up, and see if I can correct this model. I want to get all the base coats down before I mess around with it too much. Using the Army Painter's Dark Wood from the 1.0 range, I go in and get the grips on his hammer. I then use the 2.0 Polished Silver, which is one of the new metallics, and this really gives a bright finish. This would be something that would look really good darkened down with some non-oil or a dark shade. With the base coats practically done, you can see that the armor looks like a bit of a mess. There's not a whole lot of definition there. The helmet has some depth to it, but a lot of those areas that were dark just really looked like an eyesore. I decide to make a change at this point, using some of the Citadel Seraphim Sepia to go over the armor, almost thinking about it like approaching a Deathwing, if you will, to use this color and then try to highlight that back up. I then grab some Citadel Averland Sunset, which is a great base layer paint for yellow, and I go back over trying to get some opaqueness on the helmet. I start to feel a bit better about where we're headed as far as the color scheme is going, and then I go back to the Army Painter Skeleton Bone here, and I'm starting to lighten back some of that armor up, leaving the darker areas with that Seraphim Sepia color. And this is what takes time, and what many would consider painting the normal way, where you put on a base layer wash and then highlight back up. Since I wanted this to be more of a speed paint kind of a job, this is where I was really getting frustrated. Now I will say that the Speed Paint 2.0 that I was putting this over, as well as the wash, seemed to do pretty well and did not seem to reactivate or have those reactivation properties that 1.0 did. I decided to grab some Vallejo German Gray, which is one of my favorite black colors. It's not quite black, it's more of a really dark gray, but I'm just outlining this helmet of where I want the black to be, and then I'm going to fill that in. I go in with some Speed Paint Magic Blue to the headlight before going back to my German Gray and adding some hazard stripes onto some of the tubes. I try to give a highlight to the bronze area with Retributor armor. You can't really tell. I go in and patch up some of the detail work, some clasp here and there. I also give a pen wash to the helmet with Citadel's Nun Oil. And a pen wash is just simply where you go in to the armor panels and kind of give those a dark line, a dark shadow to help those pop. I tighten some of that yellow back up with Averland Sunset, and I'm still not quite where I want to be. In the end, I go back through with Agrax Earthshade, a Citadel wash. I get the armor again as well as the helmet. I highlight the armor back up with the skeleton bone. I also give a Nuln Oil wash to all of the silver bits as well, like the weapon as well as whatever's on his backpack, to try to darken that down some. In the end, I finally got something that I was happy with after highlighting it back up, and when I just wanted to use a handful of paints, turned into a complete mess on my desk. The final result is something that I'm happy to put on the table and feature in our battle reports. And in this experience, I've learned quite a few things of kind of what I want to use and what I don't want to use. Some of the key takeaways from this video is that your painting experience is all a journey. You don't have to paint to anyone's standard but your own. If you're unhappy with something, then try something new, find a new way to approach it, try something else out. Painting should be a stress reliever and something that ultimately brings you some happiness. And while this video doesn't necessarily reflect my best work, it does demonstrate something that I feel all hobbyists experience at some point or another. Alright, and that's it. I really hope you enjoyed the video. It was a bit different. Again, I planned to do a painting tutorial, and it turned into something that I found pretty rewarding to put together and produce for you. So thanks so much for watching. Big thank you to the Supporters Club. Your names are on the screen now. There's several ways that you can support the channel if you choose to do so. All those links will be down in the description below, plus some of the new merch that's out there. You can take a look at those as well. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.